days. I'll accept either, any of those. Day 3, the land and the planets. Day 4, sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, FF, French fries, right? Fish and fowl. Day 6, land animals, and special creations of man and woman. Now, we're going to see in chapter 2, we saw in chapter 2 about the Garden of Eden, it was perfect, and there was one law, only one law, which was don't eat of that tree. Don't eat of that tree. What was the name of that tree again? Knowledge of good and evil. And they ate from it. And what happened? They sinned. And immediately they had a conscience. They were ashamed. They had emotions. They began to feel estranged from God. And they were hiding themselves from God already. They were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. God said, put on clothing. He put clothing on them and then he kicked them out. But God didn't abandon them. God was still God still let them come into his presence. Not in the garden, but he was still in contact with them. Cain and Abel made an offering to him. But what was the difference between their offerings? What was the difference? Abel's sacrifice was one of blood. Well, it doesn't say, it just says it was a lamb. That's all it says. It was from his flock. Flock of what? Well, it was a shepherd, could have been sheep. But anyway, what was the difference? God was pleased with Abel and not pleased with Cain. Why? The word better. Abel brought the best. The first of his flock. And the fat thereof. The best. The perfect one. He searched through his flock and found the perfect one. How many of you, when you go to the store, you buy a watermelon? Done that before? Several of them. I come from Florida and I love watermelon. Here in Kansas City, it seems like people don't like watermelon. It seems strange to me. I love watermelon. Anyway, I go to the watermelon display there. They have them set up in boxes. And you can look at them and you can thump them. The color to make sure that they have good stripes. Look for a yellow spot. I take my time. I'm looking for the best one. Okay. That's what Abel did. He took his time. He searched out the best one. And found the best one and brought it to sacrifice. And Cain just picked up whatever he had. He didn't do anything special. He didn't say, I want the best I have. He just gave whatever he had. A sacrifice should be giving up something, not just taking from your leftovers. That's not a sacrifice. But anyway, the result is that God was happy with Abel, but was not happy with Cain. And what happened? He got angry. And what did God say to him? If accept your offering. You can change it. And Cain decided from then on to change, and he would do better. Really? Then, he stayed angry. And he bore a grudge and dwelled on that. And he got angrier and angrier, and he became bitter. And he killed his own brother. He killed his own flesh and blood. God said, "What have you done?" He said, "I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about." He learned that from his parent, right? Blame somebody else. It's not my fault. Why did that make God? God accepted Abel's offering, but he didn't accept Cain's. And Cain got angry about that. He thought that God had played favorites. He was upset and killed him. So now, God says, "Okay, you're forgiven." Really? If Cain would have admitted it and confessed and repented of that, maybe God wouldn't have done anything to Cain. He would have forgiven him. But instead he says, "Not my problem. I'm not responsible for it." And God said, "Come on, your brother's blood is crying out from the land. I'm going to curse you." So Cain left with a mark on him so that no one would kill him. He went out from the presence of the Lord, which is a sad verse, and dwelt in the land of Nod. So you see, the descendants of Cain. And you see on this board, they have it has the descendants of Cain along with what? Later, they were three sons of Lamech, Jabal and Jubal, and Tubal-Cain. One worked with iron or metal, one was a musician, and the other one was a farmer, or a nomad who took care of animals. Okay, right. Jabal and Jubal. Here it is. Tubal-Cain and Naamah. So that's all that we have about the line of Cain in the Bible. Now, we'll see in chapter 5 the line of this is the book of the generations of Adam. So we see the word generations. What's this talking about? What is generation? The line of descendants of Adam. And we recognize that the line of Adam is Seth. We'll see that pretty soon. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them. And blessed them, and called their name Adam. Now we know who gave birth to Adam? No one. No one gave birth to Adam. God formed him in the dust of the earth. Who gave her to Eve? No one. God made her from the bone from Adam's ribs. They were specially created by God. And in their line of descendants, we see Adam and Eve, Adam lived 800 years. He had a son in his own likeness after his image and called his name Seth. And in the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years. He begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. He was 130 years old and he had a son. That doesn't seem possible. And he died at the age of 130 years. That's impossible. We agree that that's impossible. Today, that's impossible. Your body might live to be 100. You'd be very, very lucky to make it to 100. Usually, the normal age of death in America is if they live that young, we don't know what they look like there, but we can guess. We have a guess why they were living so long. They didn't age like they do now. The earth was still covered, protective layer. The ozone layer, but imagine that it's very strong to protect the earth. Why? I'll explain more later when we get to the story of Noah and the story of the flood. But people lived a long time back then. Why? Because that was just the way it happened. And people were able to have children later in life. We don't know how much later. 900 years, maybe. Remember, Adam himself had no experience of being a child. He'd never been a baby. He was made as an adult man. His son Seth was the first time he ever had to change a dirty diaper in history. Oh, I'm sorry, Cain. Abel, yes. This is one. I don't know. I can't answer that, but why? Why is the next descendant of Adam considered as Seth? Why not Cain? Cain was cursed. And we'll see as we go through this story in the book of Genesis that sometimes the older is not the one who's chosen for the inheritance. Most of the time, that's true, but the older son is the next in line. As the fathers passed on their blessings to the older children, but not always. We'll see some other examples after a while in the book of Genesis. It doesn't always happen that way. Most of the time, we see a man's and then his firstborn son, given the place of honor in that culture to the oldest. So Adam lived 930 years. So you understand this picture of Adam's life. So we have Adam and Seth, and each one in turn. But we forget that Adam still lived after Seth. He lived for several more generations. We see his children, his grandchildren. He saw his great-grandchildren, great-great. How many generations did Adam live? He lived until the time of Lamech, the father of Noah. He could have met the father of Noah. That's how long he lived. Seth knew Adam. Cain knew Adam. Mahalalel knew Adam. Jared knew Adam. Enoch knew Adam. So, there were 9 generations after Adam who knew him. Now, I'm curious, do you think that Adam told them the stories of what happened? Of course. Of course. He told them the stories of how he was made, the story of where they came from, the story that he was there in the Garden of Eden, that he walked with God. Remember, we're going to see this was when the people began to call on the name of the Lord. So, these are the people of his line who began to worship God. So they weren't all evil, especially from this line. Some of these were wonderful men, and they worshiped and walked with God and were faithful. We don't know. I'll give you an example. Lamech served God for many years. And now, it's important to notice that Adam begat sons and daughters. Right, sons and daughters. How many? It doesn't say.
Right.
300? Maybe. 500? Maybe. 30 or 50 or 100 could be. There's no guarantee. We don't know for sure how many children he had, but we can guess that he had a lot of children. The first 2, we know that the third was born when he was 130. We'll see as we go through. They started having children after they became, after they into their hundreds. They had a long time to build a good relationship with each other. And finally, they were ready to have children when they were over 100 years old. With the doctor's skill, well, you understand, They didn't have very many health problems back then. They didn't have diseases like they do now. Some they did. There were some. After Adam died, what do you mean? Okay, we'll talk about that. It's a good question. Just wait. I'll answer this later. We'll talk about Abraham. I'll explain it later when we get to Abraham. I'm curious. 800. It was 800. No, it was 130 when Seth was born. He had at least 3 before he had reached 130. He had Cain, Abel, and Cain's wife. Because Cain had a wife. So where did she come from? She had to be a sister. When Cain left the presence of the Lord and went to the land of Nod, his wife went with him. And possibly Adam and Eve had other girls, but we don't know. And Seth lived 105 years and begat Enos. And Seth lived after he begat Enos 807 years and begat sons and daughters. Now, notice this. He begat sons and daughters. Again, how many? We don't know. A lot. Understand that the population was growing quickly. It was multiplying quickly. And all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. So Seth had a son named Enos. Again, notice here's Seth. And here's his death, just about the time Noah was born. Seth did not meet Noah. But he lived for 8 generations. And Enos lived 90 years and begat Canaan. And Enos lived after he begat Canaan 815 years and begat sons and daughters. How many? We don't know. And all the days of Enos were 905 years, and he died. So here's Enos' birth, and he survives up to the time of Noah. He could have met Noah. Noah would have been about 80 when Enos died. So Noah could have known Enos, his great-great-great-great-great-great-great grandfather. Do you think Noah knew these stories about Adam and Seth and Abel and Cain? Yes. 70 years and begat Mahalalel. And Canaan lived after he begat Mahalalel 840 years. And again, notice, begat sons and daughters. How many? A lot. And all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. So, here's Canaan's birth. He survives all the way up to the lifetime of Noah. He died during Noah's lifetime. Here's the flood on the timeline. Here's the flood. Noah, we definitely know. Noah definitely knew who Adam was. He had never met him. He had met. He could have met Enos. And probably talked with him, and probably asked him questions. What happened during his lifetime? About his grandparents. So that oral tradition would have been passed on. So after Mahalalel, now, hold on.
Hold on.
Oh, Enos, oh, I'll explain about that. I'll explain about that later, that's coming later. So. Yeah, I'll explain it. And Mahalalel lived 65 years and begat Jared. And Mahalalel lived after he begat Jared 830 years and begat sons and daughters. So, lots of children. All the days of Mahalalel were 895 years. He died. So again, you see, there's Mahalalel. He survives until the time he survives up through into the time of Noah. Here's when he dies. And then we have Jared. Jared lived 162 years and begat Enoch. And Jared lived after he begat Enoch 830 years and begat sons and daughters. And all of the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. So here's Jared's birth. And Jared survived well into Noah's life. He dies right here. Enoch was a famous man of faith. And Enoch lived 65 years now. Again, notice, he begat sons and daughters. Each person mentioned here so far has had lots of descendants. Back then, there was no birth control. There was no reason to stop having babies. They weren't thinking about their retirement or saving their money. There was no thought of that. How long could they go on having children? 300 or 400 or possibly older women now can't have children today after age 50. Doctors say, that's not healthy. But back then, there weren't any doctors to say you have to stop. They went on. Why stop? They didn't know any different. And Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah. Enoch walked with God. So he was special. He was different. Enoch walked with God. After he begat Methuselah, 300 years, and begat sons and daughters. He begat sons and daughters. All the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not. What does that mean? He was not. He was not what? He wasn't there. He walked with God, and they had a close relationship with God, and one day God took him. Imagine the kids going, where did Daddy go? Imagine the wife at home, she's pregnant with the 50th child or something, I don't know. And the father's gone. Where'd he go? We don't know. He's gone. He's with God. Where God took him. So, the interesting thing about Enoch, he never met Noah. That's interesting. He was already gone before Noah's birth. The next generation, some of you have grandkids. Some of you have great grandkids. That means you beat the odds. You beat Enoch. Enoch never saw his great grandchildren. He met his son and his grandson. He never saw his great grandson. He only lived 2 generations before God took him. Methuselah lived 187 years and begat Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 782 years and begat sons and daughters. All the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. The Bible, he has the record for the oldest man. It's possible that there were other people who were older that were recorded, but according to the Bible, he has the oldest. He's the oldest man now. What's interesting about Methuselah, after who's the wise Enoch, father of Methuselah? He walked with God. he a good guy? Did he follow God? Yeah. How do you know? I'll show you. Methuselah died at the age of 969. No, that's a different one. This is Cain. Cain's descendants. So this person named Methuselah is a different person. Methuselah with an E lived 969 years. He died the same year as the flood. Now, Steve and I were arguing about this. Steve, we were arguing about this. Did Methuselah die in the flood? Before the flood? He died. For sure he died. Before the flood? We don't know for sure. The Bible doesn't tell us for sure. But we can read who were the godly men. We see Methuselah as the son of Enoch, one of the most perfect holy men ever, and the father of, what about Lamech? He was also a good, faithful man. And how do we know? I'll show you in a minute. But for now, Methuselah, I believe, died, and soon after his death, the flood happened. We'll talk more about this several chapters later when we talk about the flood. Lamech, his son. Let's go back up. Okay. So he begat more sons. Methuselah begat more children. And Lamech lived 182 years and begat a son. Called his name Noah, saying, "This saying shall comfort us concerning the work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed." So, be comforted. I believe that Lamech was a holy man. He taught Noah how to be a righteous man. And he lived after Noah's birth 595 years. And begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. So again, you see, here's Lamech. He was born here, and then he's dying. Just before the flood. 5 years before the flood. Yes. Methuselah and Lamech would have seen Noah building the ark and possibly helped him. Methuselah was old at that time, 869 years old when Noah began building the ark. Don't know how much he could have done to help, but Lamech was still relatively young at 677 years old. He could have helped carry the wood maybe. Or brought the nails, gathered in the animals, we don't know. get to Noah. He was 500 years old. And Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So we don't know exactly when Noah's three sons were born. They were all born at the same time, or whether they were all born at the same time. He was 500 years old. We don't know. Also where their wives came from. We don't know that. You know, they had wives. We'll see more about that later. But Noah, we'll see later. Noah found grace in the eyes of God. We'll talk about that later. And also, next week, we should be talking about how old Noah was when he began to build the ark. How long it took to build the ark. There was a big argument about whether it took 120 years or what. So, several other things that we'll talk about next week. So there's a long list of names and their ages, and we're like, so what? You've been giving us all these names. How boring. Names and ages, so what? It's important that we continue to study where Noah learned how to walk with God. Where did he learn to sacrifice? Because after the ark landed, they descended from the ark, and Noah went out and instantly offered a sacrifice. Why? Who taught him to sacrifice? Who told him about God? Who told him how to follow God? Obviously, it was his father, his grandfather, his ancestors. All of them were taught him about God. Even the ones he'd never met. But he knew their names because they continued in history. So, we have an important responsibility, especially those of you who are older. It's important that you take responsibility for passing on to the next generation. And some of them will grow up as your grandchildren. Praise the Lord. And do your best to help raise the next generation. Adam didn't stop having children. He stayed involved with his children until he died. I believe that we have a responsibility to continue to teach, encourage, invest in the next generations, because the next generations are those who will continue after we're gone. After we're dead and buried, who's going to carry on? The OBC, who's going to be the leader of the church, who's going to be their family, who's going to teach their kids, and then generations after that. If I don't teach my kids, that means it's my fault if they fail. I encourage you to continue to pass on to the next generation. Your kids are already grown and gone, then find the next generation of deaf people and pass it on to them. It's important to make an impact on youth. In the next 50 years, maybe you're looking for the deaf community. We still have some who are taking a strong stand and shining a light. I encourage those of you who have time left to take advantage of it. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for these people that we've named. This may seem boring, but to me it's interesting. I enjoy reading about them and figuring out, seeing where were when they died and who was alive at that time. Whether they met each other, whether they talked to each other. Lord, I pray that as we continue a godly tradition in our church, I pray that you will bless our church service soon as we have the opportunity to honor you and remember that you died on the cross. I thank you for your sacrifice.